What's really interesting, and I would imagine that most of you have heard of Dolores Cannon at least, perhaps you're not fully familiar with her technique. She did create something over 45 years ago back in the West when these concepts were quite alien to Western society. Reincarnation, past lives. In fact, she couldn't even get her books published because the concepts weren't even recognized within the Western countries. But fast forward to the clock, 2024, here we are having this wonderful transmission, and we know all about this stuff. We know not just about past lives, we know about parallel lives, we know about different dimensions. Dolores Cannon being pivotal to that awakening, that understanding through many books that she wrote over the years, from the Convoluted Universe series to Conversations with Nostradamus to the Three Waves of Volunteers and the New Earth. And what specifically I want to be discussing today, and it does celebrate her legacy and her great wisdom that she left us, is the understanding that we create our reality. Say that to yourself. I create my reality. Even the great Albert Einstein taught us that everything is energy, including you. And you are creating your world with every thought, every act, every emotion. You are this beautiful artist, and this life that you're here to do, whether you're a starseed or a light worker, you are creating. And we're doing this, Dolores Cannon taught us, with our thoughts, with our emotions, and even with all of the forms that we create in life. Let's just take a moment now just to pause and take that in, that we're creating everything. It leaves you with great responsibility. You know, imagine that every single thought, every emotion, every action that you are taking are vibrations. They're signaling out to the universe. So we are these beautiful creators. We're creating our own reality. And we have so much more power than we give ourselves credit for. We live in challenging times, there's no doubt about that. And often we feel victimized to life situation, our physical limitations. But one of the greatest truths I've learnt with the people I work with, particularly through hypnosis, and they have these wonderful discoveries when they disidentify with their analytical mind and they get really relaxed in the trance state, is that they learn how powerful they are to create and shape the reality in which they live. And you know what? We've been creating all of our lives. You're creating everything, whether you're conscious of it or not. Now, you might say, and often Dolores Cannon would say this, well, I wouldn't want to create this. You know, I have illness in my body, or I have financial limitation. Why would I create this? Now, obviously, we don't do it consciously, because every word, every emotion is creating. And that's why our words are important. You know, what you say in your mind, what you identify with, is like a brush of the brush stroke on the canvas. Now, if you are powerful enough to create illness in your life, you're powerful enough to make you well. And one of the great things that people learned when they would go to have a session with Dolores, or they come to see me, is that they can heal any illness. Because if you can create illness, then you can uncreate it. And this is a great realization. A lot of us are familiar within the spiritual communities that we find ourselves in. We know about the law of attraction. We've heard about the law of attraction. But I want to take that one step further, because we know that from a basis. We don't get what we want. I think that's pretty obvious to most of us, because we certainly wouldn't want any of the unfavorable things that tend to manifest and occur. We get what we are vibrating. We get what we are admitting energetically. Where I think the law of attraction is missing components is that we don't get what we want, we get what we are. And this is why, when it comes to manifesting, our vibration, our energy is so important. Now, we're always oscillating between different vibrations, different energies. Even in a single day, you might be oscillating between depression, anxiety, and then joy. Our job, our responsibility, is to elevate our energy. To elevate our energy means we're on a particular frequency. Think about a traditional radio station. I'm sure a lot of you will be old enough to remember the old dial on your car. Now, whatever frequency, it might be 89.5 or 89.2, whatever frequency, you have to get that broadcast, because that's what you're tuned to. Now, we know simultaneously when we're listening to a radio station that all the other frequencies are available simultaneously. But it's your responsibility and your choice about which dial you're tuned into. When we are tuned into this abundance frequency, we receive an abundant broadcast. So this is why our frequency, our vibration is so important. And Dolores Cannon spoke in great detail in her books about attuning our energy to the higher vibrational states. You know, one of the most powerful ways of doing this, although it might sound simplistic, you've heard it before, is forms of meditation. All of the great wisdom traditions that have come down through the centuries have taught us this. And to simplify it, what you are doing is you are just tapping into your beingness, your innate beingness. That's the real you, beyond the form, the vehicle that you occupy. I like to call this body a vehicle. We know when we drive a car or we're a passenger in the car, we're not the car. We're just using it as a form of transportation to get us from A to B. And that is what you are like in this physical. You are not your body. You are not even your analytical mind. It's just a tool for you to navigate. And if you use it positively, you can create anything you want. Now, that works in the positive context, and we have enough experience to know this, it's going to work in the negative context. And most people are living their lives relatively unconsciously, creating relatively unconsciously, because they're unaware of the power that they possess. Dolores Cannon taught us how to, now she coined this phrase, manipulate energy. Often people get confused when they hear that terminology, because they immediately think that manipulate is something negative. Now, of course, it has its negative context. What she was meaning in the positive context, and this is the dictionary definition, is to consciously mold and shape. So to manipulate energy is to consciously mold and shape our reality that we want. Now, first, you've got to know what you want. When you know what you want, then you move on to a frequency of intentional creation. You can have anything you want. Now, the only limitation that you're going to experience, the only cap, is that which you set for yourself. You see, we can create worlds. We have created worlds. But the lack and the limitation that you will experience is that which you set for yourself. Isn't that liberating? Isn't that great to know that we don't have any force out there somewhere that's holding us back? You know, every single block that I have seen with the hundreds of people I've worked with in the trance state, in the hypnosis state, every single time there is an issue holding an individual back, it's not coming from some malevolent force externally. It is the unconscious blocks in their subconscious mind that they hold to mind. Now, one of the major questions I always get asked is, how do I create abundance in my life? How do I create the perfect relationship? How do I get out of this 9-to-5 rat race and live my life's purpose? Great question, right? Many of you have probably asked that question, or you've going to have that question come out as you begin to orient and wake up and realize what your purpose is. This may seem counterintuitive, but another great one of my teachers, Lester Levinson, I don't know if many of you would have heard of him. He's passed on now, like Dolores Cannon, taught me this and taught many people this is, it may seem counterintuitive, but first you have to let it go. Whatever you want to create, you have to let it go. We kind of think that, hang on, I don't want to let this concept go, this idea go, because if I let it go, then I'm disidentifying with it. I won't get it. And in fact, it's the very opposite, because when you hold something, generally when we are clutching on to an object or a relationship or a thing, we're offering a sense of resistance to it. Now, everything in the universe is in a state of movement, is in a state of flux. The moment that we contract, we resist, and the great psychiatrist Carl Jung taught us that anything that you resist will persist. And this is the unconscious block, or one of them that I talk about. See, often the more we want something, the more we are resisting the flow of life, the more we are holding ourselves back from receiving it. So when we let go, we allow and we begin to magnetize magnetically back to us that which we desire. This was one of the greatest realizations, I think, the missing component within manifestation, because we think that by wanting it more or thinking about it more, we've got more likelihood of getting it. And that is actually the very opposite. Say this, everything is in the universe is in a state of flow. Now, you're either going to be flowing with the currents of the universe energetically, or you're going to be subconsciously resisting it. I teach people how to flow with life. And boy, when you start to flow with life and you're moving with the current, with the momentum, you start getting all of the favorable events in your life. You start attracting magnetically to you the relationships, the opportunities, the wonderful things that we want to create. Now, I want you to pause for a moment and just take that in, energetically take that in. Because one of the things that we often forget as we are traversing this reality is just how powerful we are. Now, I'm not a more powerful creator than you are. Neil is not a more powerful creator than you are. We are equally as powerful. We equally have the same potential. But we must understand the power. We must initiate and we must learn how to manipulate, how to create. We do it with our energy. The best thing that you can do is you can be elevating, you can be lifting your energy, you can be meditating, you can be bringing yourself into a state of expectation, of joy. Some great practical tools that you may want to adopt is journaling, getting clear with the universe about what you want. Another great piece of wisdom that Dolores Cannon left us was this, is that all of your guides, all of your angels, and you have many of them, by the way, that are here to assist you along the way, cannot intervene unless you give them permission to. You see, we live in a free will universe. And in order for them to help you, you have to be consciously and actively inviting them in and asking for help. Something that you may do, I certainly do this every day, is I just ask them to bring about circumstances for my highest good. I ask for parking spots. I ask them for opportunities. I ask them for safe travel when I'm traveling. Now, if I'm not asking them, their hands are tied. You need to be inviting them in. And Dolores Cannon said this, and I quote, is when you ask them, boy, do they love to come in. Boy, do they want to come in and help you, to protect you, to assist you. But you have to call them in. We create our entire world, our entire universe. And many people understand this reality as some as a simulation. Some people understand it like Dolores Cannon would define it as it's like a big play. Shakespeare said this too. We come in, we play out our role, and then we discard the costume that we've been wearing. You understand, from this perspective, it's why any form of division or racism is just so illogical, because this isn't who we really are. This is just a costume we're wearing. And beyond that, we realize that we are all one. And just as we are all one, we are equally just as powerful, just as divine as one another. We get caught up so much in this illusion that we identify with all of these costumes that we're wearing, all of the competitiveness, all of the division. We know we live in a divisive world. You've not come here to add to that division. You've come here to heal that division. You've come here to bring people together and to remind them of who they really are. And this is why I love the concept, although it's misunderstood often, of non-duality, is that we are really all a part of the same divine force. Some will identify as starseeds, which is wonderful. And that is one layer of your existence, but beyond even that layer, beyond even that identity, you are the one infinite creator. You are the one infinite consciousness that is pervasive, not just through us as human beings, but through every sentient life force that is pervasive throughout the entire cosmos. And that is why our galactic family are so willing and able and interested in our evolution and development, because they themselves recognize that we are them and they are us, and that we are all one. So if you've got all of this power, right, what are you going to do with it? First, you've got to know what you want. That is the most important aspect. Because if you don't know what you want, what you will find is you will be stagnant energetically. You won't know to go from left to right. It's like standing before the canvas with all of the brushes and all of the paint and just sitting there and contemplating what to create. Who's been caught up in times of that? You sit there, you don't know which direction to take next. So this is why it's so important to really go within and get still. And learn to remember, to download, if you like, who and what you are, why you are here, what you are meant to contribute. You know, I've come to learn that we all have particularly in these great times of ascension, we all have a pivotal role to play during this most exciting time in humanity's history. And let me talk to that for a moment, just how exciting and special this time is. Dolores Cannon wrote extensively about this specific time in human history. We have other species from every dimension, all focused on this one. One of the reasons that they look to us with great anticipation of what will come next is they know how difficult this school is. They know this is one of the most difficult places. It's so difficult because we forget who we are when we come in. The veil comes down and we forget. We forget our contracts. We forget our origins. And they have so much anticipation because they know that if we can do it with this such limited form, they can do greater things. And so there is so much anticipation. This is the first time that an entire species is making an evolutionary shift into a completely different dimension. Our world has been splitting for quite some years. Who knows that? It's so obvious now. When Dolores Cannon wrote the book, The Three Waves of Volunteers in the New Earth, at the time of writing, we certainly weren't seeing the split as we do now. We see the split in almost every sphere of life, from the political, now to the medical, to the scientific. My question for you is, as this split is occurring, where are you vibrationally? Are you finding yourself constantly oscillating between different frequencies, different vibrations? Now, that is okay. A lot of people get into fear when I say this and think, oh, I'm not making the split. Believe you me, if you're watching this today and you registered for this, you're making the shift into the positive. I can guarantee you that. This shift is going to become more and more pronounced. It's going to be a bit of a rocky ride. We've been already going through this, but you have more power. You have more protection than you could ever know. Your most important place for you to put your energy is in conscious creation. And you being incarnated at the moment means that you signed up for this. Now, we're going to have some challenging times ahead. We've been having challenging times. We all know that over the last couple of years. But let me tell you, what is on the other side of all this is beyond what you could ever even imagine. Dr. David Hawkins, some of you are familiar with his work, taught us that the calibration of the average human being has exceeded over 208%. Now, that may sound a bit technical. During the time of Jesus, that was way down at about a level of 100, a very lower form of human consciousness. Because we've raised to a certain frequency as a collective of humanity, and many of us are going to be vibrating at much higher rates and states of vibration. Because we're now calibrating at over 200, it means we have already, and this happened in the 90s, we've already tipped the scales to ascend into a higher dimension. We've already passed the test. That's already occurred. What we are witnessing now is a dismantling of an ancient structure that has held us bound to a certain paradigm for eons of time. Now, that is not a singular event. It's not one event that's going to happen that's going to dismantle a very old system. It's a succession of events. And as that old world is falling away, a new one is being built. A new one is emerging. And that's how powerful you are, because you are an architect. You are building this new world. Now, if we were to construct a building, you would know that we need many people to construct, to erect a new structure. So we all have individual roles to play. We all have our own construction process as we build this new world. A lot of people say, well, where is the new earth? I always point to the individual and say, you're it. You're the hope of the world, the children that are being born today, the younger ones. Dolores Cannon would call them the hope of the world. And these kids are coming in with entirely different DNA. Who's been noticing lately, energetically, your body may seem to be going through and oscillating through all of these different emotions. Your diets are changing. This is all signs that things are shifting. You perhaps are moving to a lighter diet. You're not needing as much food. I've noticed physically for me is that I'm needing to drink a lot more water over the last couple of weeks because things are moving so quickly. This is happening exponentially year on year. So we're going through a bit of a speeding up at the moment, and it's going to get faster. We're and have been watching the emergence of artificial intelligence. I want to speak to this for a moment because often this is a trigger of fear. Machine learning is learning from you. The machines are not here to destroy us like many people perhaps believe and we've read about in science fiction. The machines are learning from you. They're learning from me. Now, we're not going to go away. In fact, that they are a result of the evolutionary shift that we have made. All they do is they take in data that we are putting in to social media, that we are putting in to the world, and they are learning from us. This is why every action, everything you do online is important because you are training this machine. And so when we train this, we want to move it into a positive sphere, into a positive mode to help us. Ultimately, it's going to make our lives better because it's going to free us up to do more of these manual tasks that we used to do. It's going to take care of that so we can move into this more free society. In Dolores Cannon's books, Conversations with Nostradamus, it was discussed with Nostradamus about the time we're living in now. He called it the 1,000 years of peace. He said there would be more innovation on the planet than it's ever experienced before. One of those things was this intelligence. Now, yes, there will be a negative element to this, but I think that is moving more towards the negative as this splitting of realities take place. The new earth and the old earth. The wonderful thing is we've already chosen which direction we're going to move in. Many of you are being challenged, even as you're listening to me communicate today, and you've listened to the other speakers during this incredible event. And I want to thank Neil for his dedication. And I want to say that Neil, I just love his energy. He's incredible. And he had a relationship with Dolores Cannon. They worked together at a conference. He's one of these architects that's building this. And I just know how hard he works, and putting together something like this, just phenomenal. It's so much more work than you could ever imagine when someone organizes an event. But how blessed are you that you can join from all over the world and be a part of this energetic exchange? Because that's indeed what it is. And you understand that everything is energy. My words that are going out and inspiring you, hopefully, and I know they are, is energy. And as you walk away from this, as this conference ends and you take what you have gained energetically, my question to you is, what are you going to do with that? Get clear, write it down. Get very clear about how you use this energy that has been imparted to you. How can you change your world? Now, I do this in my work, one client at a time, one person at a time, every interaction at a time, because this is how you build. This is how you erect a structure. It's one element, it's one level at a time. And if you've ever witnessed a building being erected, you'll know that it seems, although nothing happens for quite some time as the excavation process happens, this digging and laying the foundations. And then all of a sudden, bang, it seems that in a very short time, the structure is a quarter of the way up. And then before you know it, it's fully erected and ready for completion. These great pioneers like Dolores Cannon, like Neil, and the other wonderful speakers have been laying for years the foundations upon which we now are erecting this beautiful new world. And we are in exciting times. I want you to release any fear about the future. There's nothing to fear but fear itself. And I want to assure you that everything is on course. What you need to put your energy into, what you need to put your focus into, is what you will create. What specific role you have come. And first you need to learn what that is. And I hope you utilize all of the wisdom and the tools to remember who and what you are. Because your contribution is important. And you are important. And you play a pivotal role. And you are not here by accident. You are here with purpose, on purpose.